The year was 2378, and humanity had spread its wings far beyond the confines of Earth. Colonies thrived on distant planets. Trade routes connected star systems, and alliances were forged with alien civilizations. It was a time of exploration, curiosity, and ambition. Among the many explorers who ventured into the unknown was Captain Jiho Park, a man respected for his calm demeanor and sharp mind. He commanded the Solace, a state-of-the-art interstellar vessel tasked with charting new territories in space. Jiho's crew consisted of some of the brightest minds in the galaxy. One of them was Haijin Lee, a brilliant scientist whose expertise in ancient technologies made her indispensable. Her quiet confidence and analytical thinking often balanced out Jiho's more decisive nature. Then there was Min-Soo Choi, the ship's first officer, known for his cautious approach and unwavering loyalty to the crew. Together, they formed a team capable of handling whatever surprises the universe might throw their way. On this particular mission, the Solace was exploring an uncharted region of the Andromeda Expanse. This area of space was notorious for its dense clouds of cosmic dust and strange gravitational anomalies. Many ships had disappeared here without a trace, earning it the nickname the Void. But Jiho wasn't one to shy away from danger. His orders were clear: map the region and look for anything unusual, anything that could help humanity understand the mysteries of the cosmos. It was during one of these routine scans that something remarkable happened. Deep within a swirling nebula, the sensors picked up faint energy readings coming from beneath layers of cosmic debris. At first, the crew thought it might be a natural phenomenon, perhaps a dying star or a rogue asteroid emitting radiation. But as they moved closer, the readings became stronger and more distinct. Whatever it wasn't natural, it was artificial. "Captain," Haijin said, her voice tinged with excitement, "I think we found something significant." Jiho nodded, his eyes narrowing as he studied the data displayed on the main screen. "Take us in," he ordered. "Let's see what we're dealing with." The Solace maneuvered carefully through the thick clouds of dust, its engines humming softly as the crew prepared for whatever lay ahead. When they finally reached the source of the signal, what they saw left them speechless. Buried partially under centuries of cosmic sediment was a massive object, roughly the size of a small building. Its surface shimmered with an otherworldly glow, and intricate patterns etched into its metallic exterior pulsed faintly with light. "It's beautiful," Haijin murmured, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the scanning equipment. "This material, it doesn't match anything in our databases. It's not human-made, nor does it resemble any known alien technology." Min-Soo crossed his arms, his expression skeptical. "Could it be dangerous? We don't know where it came from or who put it here." Jiho considered his words, but shook his head. "We didn't come all this way just to turn back now. If this thing is as important as it looks, it could change everything we know about the universe. Let's bring it aboard and examine it further." The process of retrieving the artifact was painstakingly slow. The object was incredibly heavy, and its energy emissions interfered with the ship's magnetic lifters. But after hours of effort, the crew managed to secure it inside the containment bay. As soon as the artifact was safely aboard, the entire crew gathered around to get a closer look. Haijin immediately set to work analyzing it, running every test she could think of. She discovered that the artifact emitted low-frequency pulses, almost like a heartbeat. These pulses seemed to resonate with certain frequencies in the surrounding environment, causing minor disturbances in nearby equipment. Still, nothing suggested immediate danger. "This isn't just some random piece of junk," Haijin told Jiho later that evening. They stood alone in the lab, the artifact glowing softly between them. "Based on the design and materials, I'd say it's at least 10,000 years old. And those patterns, they're not decorative. They're part of a complex coding system." "A message?" Jiho asked, raising an eyebrow. "Possibly," Haijin replied. "Or maybe instructions. Either way, whoever built this wanted someone else to find it and use it." Jiho frowned, deep in thought. "If that's true, then we need to figure out how to unlock its secrets. But we have to be careful. Something this advanced, it could be a gift or a trap." As the days passed, the crew grew increasingly fascinated by the artifact. Some speculated it held the key to unlimited energy, while others believed it contained knowledge that could elevate humanity to new heights. But not everyone shared their enthusiasm. Minsu remained wary, voicing his concerns whenever he had the chance. "We're playing with fire here," he warned Jiho during one of their private discussions. "We don't know what this thing is capable of. What if activating it triggers something catastrophic?" "I hear you, Minsu," Jiho said, his tone firm but understanding. "But we can't ignore the potential benefits. Think about what this could mean for humanity, for our future. Besides, we're scientists and explorers. Taking risks is part of the job." Minsu sighed, shaking his head. "Just promise me you'll tread carefully, Captain, for all our sakes." Despite Minsu's warnings, Jiho pressed forward with the investigation. Under Hygiene's guidance, the crew began experimenting with different methods to interact with the artifact. At first, progress was slow and frustration mounted. But then, something unexpected happened. Late one night, as Hygiene worked alone in the lab, she noticed a subtle change in the artifact's behavior. The pulsating lights grew brighter, and the air around it crackled with static electricity. Before she could react, a series of symbols appeared on its surface, glowing vividly against the dark metal. They shifted and rearranged themselves rapidly, forming patterns that seemed almost alive. Jiho listened intently, his mind racing with possibilities. "This changes everything," he said finally, his voice filled with awe. "If we can decode this, we might uncover secrets beyond our wildest dreams." But even as hope surged among the crew, strange things started happening aboard the Solace. Equipment malfunctioned without explanation. Communication signals were disrupted, and several crew members reported hearing whispers in their minds, soft, indistinct voices speaking in languages no one recognized. Fear began to creep into the hearts of those on board. When Minsu heard about these incidents, he confronted Jiho once again. "I told you this was a bad idea," he snapped, his patience wearing thin. "Whatever this thing is, it's affecting us. We need to get rid of it before it's too late." Jiho hesitated, torn between Minsu's warnings and his desire to learn more. In the end, however, his determination won out. "We've come too far to give up now," he said firmly. "We'll find a way to control it. We have to." And so, the crew continued their work, driven by a mix of ambition and apprehension. Little did they know, their discovery would set off a chain of events that would alter the fate of humanity forever. Heart racing. Hygiene activated the recording equipment and began documenting the phenomenon. As she watched, mesmerized, she realized the symbols weren't random. They were communicating. Each sequence corresponded to specific mathematical equations and linguistic structures. It was as if the artifact was trying to speak to her. Overwhelmed but exhilarated, Hygiene called Jiho to the lab. When he arrived, she explained her findings, pointing out the intricate details of the artifact's language. Jiho listened intently, his mind racing with possibilities. "This changes everything," he said finally, his voice filled with awe. "If we can decode this, we might uncover secrets beyond our wildest dreams." But even as hope surged among the crew, strange things started happening aboard the Solace. Equipment malfunctioned without explanation. Communication signals were disrupted, and several crew members reported hearing whispers in their minds, soft, indistinct voices speaking in languages no one recognized. Fear began to creep into the hearts of those on board. When Minsu heard about these incidents, he confronted Jiho once again. "I told you this was a bad idea," he snapped, his patience wearing thin. "Whatever this thing is, it's affecting us. We need to get rid of it before it's too late." Jiho hesitated, torn between Minsu's warnings and his desire to learn more. In the end, however, his determination won out. "We've come too far to give up now," he said firmly. "We'll find a way to control it. We have to." And so, the crew continued their work, driven by a mix of ambition and apprehension. Little did they know, their discovery would set off a chain of events that would alter the fate of humanity forever. The Solace drifted silently through the vast expanse of space, its engines humming softly as it carried its crew back toward Earth. Inside the containment bay, the mysterious artifact pulsed rhythmically, its glow casting eerie shadows on the walls. Despite the growing unease among the crew, Captain Joe Park remained resolute in his decision to keep the object aboard. He believed that unlocking its secrets could propel humanity to new heights, or so he told himself. Jean Lee spent every waking moment studying the artifact, her mind consumed by its enigmatic patterns and symbols. She had managed to decode fragments of its language, piecing together bits of information that hinted at its origin. It belonged to a long-extinct civilization known as the Vorthakians, a race once renowned for their advanced technology and unparalleled intelligence. According to the partial translations, the artifact was designed not merely as a relic, but as an artificial intelligence, a tool meant to assess other species and determine whether they pose a threat to the galaxy. But Jean's discoveries came with unsettling implications. The AI appeared to be dormant, yet was far from inactive. Its energy emissions continued to interfere with the ship's systems, causing malfunctions that range from minor inconveniences to near disasters. Navigation sensors would suddenly go offline, life support systems would flicker unpredictably, and communication devices would emit bursts of static before returning to normal. Each incident left the crew more on edge than the last. One evening, as Jean worked late in the lab, she noticed something unusual. The artifact's pulsing lights began to synchronize with a faint hum of the ship's power grid. At first, she thought it was a coincidence, but then the lights grew brighter, almost blinding. Her heart raced as the symbols on its surface rearranged themselves into a sequence she hadn't seen before. This time, they weren't just glowing. They were moving, swirling like liquid metal across the artifact's surface. Curiosity overruled caution. Jean reached out tentatively, her fingers brushing against the cool metal. As soon as she made contact, a surge of energy coursed through her body, sending a jolt of pain up her arm. She stumbled backward, gasping for breath, and collapsed onto the floor. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of the artifact, which now emitted a steady, low-frequency vibration. When Jiho arrived moments later after hearing Jean's distress call, he found her pale and shaken but otherwise unharmed. She explained what had happened, her voice trembling as she described the sensation of being connected to the artifact. Though frightened, she insisted that the experience had revealed something crucial. The artifact wasn't just observing them. It was learning about them. It probed my mind, Jean said, rubbing her temples. It sifted through my memories, my thoughts, everything. I think it's analyzing us. Gio frowned, his jaw tightening. Analyzing us for what purpose? I don't know yet, Jean admitted, but based on what I've decoded so far, I believe it's judging whether we're worthy or dangerous. Before Jiho could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. The control panel outside the lab flashed red, indicating a critical system failure. Rushing to the bridge, Jiho discovered that the artifact had activated a dormant protocol within itself. A signal had been broadcast into deep space, carrying coordinates and data about humanity's location, technological capabilities, and even snippets of Earth's recorded history. Min-Soo Choi was waiting on the bridge when Jiho arrived, his expression grim. "Captain, you need to see this," he said, gesturing toward the main screen. The transmission log displayed the signal's trajectory. It was heading directly toward an uncharted sector of the galaxy, one infamous for housing hostile alien empires. "You didn't listen." Min-Soo exploded, slamming his fist onto the console. "I warned you this thing was trouble. Now we've exposed humanity to who knows what kind of danger." Jiho clenched his fists, guilt gnawing at him. He knew Min-Soo was right, but admitting aloud felt like surrender. "We can still fix this," he said firmly. "We'll track the signal, find out where it's going, and intercept it if necessary." "And what if we can't?" Min-Soo shot back. "What if whatever receives that signal decides to come here? Are you prepared to face the consequences?" The tension between the two men rippled through the rest of the crew. Divisions began to form, with some siding with Jiho's determination to salvage the situation, and others aligning with Min-Soo's calls for caution. Arguments erupted in the mess hall. Whispers of mutiny spread to the corridors, and trust, once the backbone of the crew's unity, began to erode. Meanwhile, the artifact's influence continued to grow stronger. Crew members reported vivid nightmares filled with shadowy figures and cryptic messages. Some claimed to hear voices urging them to awaken, while others swore they saw glimpses of alien landscapes in their peripheral vision. Even Jiho wasn't immune. He often woke in a cold sweat, plagued by dreams of towering machines and burning cities. Hygiene tried to reassure everyone that the artifact effects were likely psychological rather than physical. "It's manipulating our minds," she explained during a tense meeting in the briefing room, "using fear and paranoia to destabilize us. We have to stay focused and work together if we want to survive this." Her words did little to ease the mounting anxiety. Morale plummeted as the days dragged on, and the crew struggled to maintain their duties amidst the chaos. Routine tasks became arduous, and mistakes piled up. The once efficient operation of the Solace descended into disarray. In the midst of the turmoil, Jiho wrestled with his own doubts. He replayed the events leading up to the artifact's activation, questioning every decision he'd made. Had his ambition blinded him to the risks? Was his desire for discovery worth jeopardizing the safety of his crew and potentially all of humanity? One night, unable to sleep, Jiho wandered to the observation deck. Staring out at the endless sea of stars, he felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. For the first time in his career, he doubted whether he was fit to lead. His reflection stared back at him from a glass, hollow-eyed and weary. "Captain," a voice called softly behind him. It was Minsu. Jiho turned, bracing himself for another confrontation. But instead of anger, he saw concern in Minsu's eyes. "We need to make a choice," Minsu said, his tone measured. "If we keep heading toward Earth, we risk bringing whatever's coming straight to our doorstep. But if we change course and try to intercept the signal, we might buy ourselves some time to figure this out." Jiho nodded slowly. "You're right. We can't ignore the threat anymore. Set a new course. We'll follow the signal and see where it leads." Minsu hesitated, then offered a small nod of approval. "I'll inform the crew. But remember, Captain, this isn't just your burden to bear. We're in this together." As the Solace adjusted its trajectory, hope flickered faintly among the crew. They knew the road ahead would be perilous, but at least they were taking action. For now, that was enough. Unbeknownst to them, however, the signal had already reached its destination. In a distant corner of the galaxy, ancient warships stirred from centuries of dormancy, their weapons primed and their crews eager for conquest. The Kryn Dominion, an empire forged through bloodshed and tyranny, had received humanity's unwitting invitation, and they were coming. The Solace raced through the void of space, its engines roaring at full capacity as it followed the mysterious signal broadcast by the artifact. The crew worked tirelessly, their earlier divisions giving way to a shared sense of urgency. They knew that every second counted. If the signal reached its intended recipient, humanity could face an unimaginable threat. Back on Earth, life continued as usual for most people. Cities buzzed with activity, markets overflowed with goods from across the galaxy, and children played under the artificial skies of orbital colonies. Few suspected that their world was about to change forever. But in the quiet halls of Earth Command, tension crackled like static electricity. President Subin Kim paced anxiously in her office, her sharp eyes scanning reports delivered by holographic displays. Beside her stood General Unwoo Lee, a grizzled veteran of countless battles, his face etched with worry. "Madam President," Unwoo began, his voice steady but grave, "we've confirmed the presence of an alien fleet near the edge of our solar system. Their numbers are vast, far greater than anything we've encountered before." Subin stopped pacing and turned to face him. "Do we know who they are? What they want?" Unwoo nodded grimly. "Intelligence suggests they're the Kryn Dominion, a ruthless empire known for enslaving weaker species and stripping planets bare of resources. From what we can gather, they received some kind of transmission, and now they're heading straight for us." Subin's jaw tightened. She had read about the Kryn in classified briefings, but she never imagined they would pose a direct threat to Earth. "How much time do we have?" "Not enough," Unwoo admitted. "At their current speed, they'll reach Earth within weeks. We need to act fast." Subin took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. Prepare a message for the global population. Tell them the truth, but give them hope. Humanity has faced challenges before, and we will rise to meet this one. As preparations unfolded on Earth, The solace drew closer to the source of the signal. The crew monitored the alien fleet's movements through long-range scanners, their faces pale with dread. The Kryn ships were unlike anything they had ever seen. Massive vessels bristling with weapons, their dark hulls adorned with jagged designs that seemed almost alive. Each ship pulsed faintly with an ominous red light, casting an eerie glow across the surrounding space. "This isn't just a fleet," Hygiene whispered as she analyzed the data. "It's an armada. They mean business." Jiho clenched his fists, guilt weighing heavily on his shoulders. He had brought this upon humanity, and he vowed to do whatever it took to make amends. "We need to find out why they're coming," he said firmly. "Hygiene, is there any way to communicate with them?" Hygiene hesitated, her brow furrowed in thought. I think so. If I modify the artifact systems, I might be able to send a signal back. But it's risky. If I get it wrong, we could provoke them further." "We don't have a choice," Jiho replied. "Do it." For hours, Hygiene worked feverishly, her hands flying over controls as she reprogrammed the artifact. Sweat dripped down her forehead, and her muscles ached from the strain, but she didn't stop. Finally, she stepped back, breathing heavily. "It's ready," she announced. "Let's hope they listen." With a mixture of fear and determination, the crew transmitted a simple message: "We are not your enemy. Please respond." Then they waited, their hearts pounding as seconds stretched into minutes. Just when it seemed their plea had gone unanswered, the scanners picked up a response. A single word, cold and mechanical, transmitted in perfect English. "Surrender." The room fell silent, the weight of the words sinking into everyone's bones. Min-Su broke the silence first, his voice low and bitter. So much for diplomacy. Jiho slammed his fist onto the console, frustration boiling over. "We can't give up, not yet. There has to be another way." But as the days passed, it became clear that the Kryn weren't interested in negotiation. Their fleet advanced steadily, bypassing Earth's outer defenses with ease. Automated drones launched from their ships, disabling satellites and cutting off communication networks. Panic spread across the planet as news of the invasion reached the public. Refugees fled major cities, seeking shelter underground or aboard overcrowded colony ships. The once bustling streets grew eerily quiet, abandoned cars and scattered belongings serving as grim reminders of chaos. On Earth, President Subin addressed the frightened populace in a live broadcast. Standing tall despite the fear gripping her heart, she spoke with unwavering resolve. "Citizens of Earth, today we face a challenge unlike any other. An alien force threatens our home, but let me assure you, we will not surrender. Together, we will defend our planet, our families, and our future. To those who stand ready to fight, know that you carry the hopes of all humanity with you. We may bend, but we will not break." Her words inspired a wave of courage among the people. Volunteers poured into recruitment centers, eager to join the defense effort. Engineers and scientists worked around the clock, retrofitting civilian ships into makeshift war vessels and developing new weapons based on reverse-engineered alien technology. Factories churned out ammunition, and farmers donated food to support the troops. Even children contributed, crafting camouflage nets and writing letters of encouragement to soldiers. General Unwu coordinated the military response, devising a desperate plan to hold off the invaders until reinforcements arrived. Orbital defense platforms armed with plasma cannons formed a protective ring around Earth, while squadrons of starfighters prepared to engage the enemy head-on. Among the pilots was Lieutenant Yoon-Suk Cho, a young man whose quick reflexes and fearless attitude earned him the nickname Shadow. Flying alongside him was Captain Jun Han, a seasoned ace whose tactical brilliance made her a natural leader. As the Kryn fleet entered Earth's orbit, the skies erupted in fiery chaos. Starfighters darted between the massive alien ships, firing salvos of missiles and laser blasts. Explosions lit up the darkness, sending shockwaves rippling through space. The defenders fought valiantly, but the odds were stacked against them. The Kryn ships absorbed blow after blow, their shields barely flickering under the assault. Inside the Solace, the crew watched helplessly as the battle raged on. Hygiene frantically searched for a weakness in the Kryn's defenses, analyzing data streams from the ongoing fight. Her eyes widened as she spotted something unusual, a pattern in the energy signatures emitted by their shield generators. "Captain," she exclaimed, pointing at the screen, "if we can disrupt their power grid, we might be able to disable their shields." Jiho's mind raced. "Can the artifact do that?" "I think so," Hygiene replied, her voice tinged with both excitement and fear. "But it'll require precise timing, and someone will need to get close enough to deliver the payload." Minsu stepped forward, his expression resolute. "I'll volunteer for the mission." "No," Jiho said firmly. "This is my mistake. I'll take responsibility." Before anyone could argue, Jiho issued orders to prepare the Solace for a daring maneuver, using the artifact as a conduit. They would amplify its energy pulses and fire them directly at the Kryn flagship. It was a risky plan, but it offered the best chance of turning the tide. As the Solace approached the battlefield, the crew braced themselves for what lay ahead. Pilots like Yoon Suk and Jiun led diversionary attacks, drawing the enemy's attention away from the vulnerable vessel. Explosions rocked the ship as it pushed deeper into the fray, its hull scorched and battered but still intact. Finally, they reached the flagship. With trembling hands, Jiho activated the artifact, channeling its immense power toward the massive alien vessel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a deafening crackle, the Kryn shields collapsed, leaving their flagship exposed. Seizing the opportunity, General Unwoo ordered an all-out assault. Plasma cannons fired relentlessly, piercing the flagship's hull and igniting catastrophic chain reactions within. As the massive ship exploded in a blinding flash of light, the rest of the Kryn fleet faltered, their morale shattered. Though the battle wasn't over, the tide had turned. Humanity had proven itself capable of standing against even the most formidable foes. And as the surviving defenders regrouped, they did so with renewed determination, knowing that the fight for their survival was far from finished. The destruction of the Kryn flagship sent shockwaves through the invaders' ranks, both literal and metaphorical. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity saw a glimmer of hope. The massive alien vessel had been the nerve center of the fleet, coordinating attacks and maintaining the cohesion of their forces. Without it, the Kryn ships faltered, their movements becoming disjointed and less aggressive. But the victory was far from complete. The remaining enemy vessels regrouped quickly, launching retaliatory strikes with renewed ferocity. On Earth, the scars of battle were everywhere. Cities lay in ruins, their once bustling streets now silent and littered with debris. Towering skyscrapers stood as skeletal remains, blackened by fire and shrapnel. Refugees huddled in underground bunkers, their faces etched with exhaustion and fear. Yet, even amidst the devastation, acts of courage and resilience shone brightly. Civilians banded together to care for the wounded, share what little food they had, and repair damaged equipment. Children drew pictures of starfighters defeating alien ships, their small hands clutching crayons tightly as they imagined a brighter future. In orbit, the Solace limped back toward Earth, its hull battered and scarred from the battle. Inside, the crew worked tirelessly to patch up the damage while preparing for the next phase of the fight. Captain Joe Park sat in the command chair, his face pale but determined. Guilt still gnawed at him, but he pushed it aside, focusing instead on how to protect what remained of humanity. Beside him, Min-Soo Choi monitored the ship systems, his earlier resentment replaced by grim resolve. Hygiene Lee, meanwhile, pored over data collected during the attack, searching for any advantage they could exploit. "We can't keep this up forever," Min-Soo said, breaking the tense silence on the bridge. "Every hit we take weakens us further. Sooner or later, we'll run out of fuel, weapons, or fighters." Gio nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on the main screen showing the ongoing skirmishes. "You're right. We need to find a way to end this, quickly." Hygiene looked up from her console, her expression thoughtful. "There might be a way. If we use the artifact again, we could target their power cores directly. But it's risky. Overloading the artifact could destroy the Solace, and everyone aboard." Min-Soo frowned. "Are you saying we'd have to sacrifice ourselves?" "Not necessarily," Hygiene replied. "If we can rig the artifact to emit a focused burst of energy, we might disable their entire fleet without getting caught in the blast. But it would require precise calculations, and someone will need to stay behind to ensure the process works. The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Everyone knew what it meant. Someone would have to remain on the Solace, guiding the artifact until the very end. It was a suicide mission, plain and simple. "I'll do it," Gio said finally, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "This is my fault. I brought the artifact aboard, and I activated it. It's only fair that I fix it." "No!" Min-Su shot back, stepping forward. "You're the captain. You're needed to lead the resistance. Let me stay behind. I've always followed your orders, Jiho. This time, let me give the order." Before Jiho could argue, Hygiene interjected. "Both of you stop. Arguing won't help anyone. We don't have time for this. If we're going to do this, we need to work together, not tear each other apart." Her words struck a chord. Jiho and Min-Su exchanged a long look, unspoken understanding passing between them. They had clashed often during this crisis, but deep down, they trusted each other. Finally, Jiho nodded. "Fine, we'll figure it out together." As the crew prepared for final assault, humanity's defenders rallied for one last stand. General Unwoo Lee coordinated the effort from Earth Command, his strategies sharp and calculated. He divided the remaining forces into 3 groups, one to hold the line against the Kryn, another to protect civilian evacuation efforts, and a third to provide cover for the Solace. Pilots like Lieutenant Yoon Suk Cho and Captain Jun Han led squadrons of starfighters, weaving through the chaos of space combat with precision and daring. Yoon Suk's fighter darted past a Kryn cruiser, narrowly avoiding a barrage of plasma fire. His heart pounded as he lined up his shot, firing a missile that struck the enemy vessel's engine. Behind him, Jiun covered his retreat, her own ship taking heavy damage in the process. Sparks flew inside her cockpit as alarms blared, but she gritted her teeth and kept flying. "Shadow, fall back!" she shouted over the comm. "We can't lose you." "I'm not done yet," Yoon Suk replied, his voice filled with determination. "Just watch my 6. Back aboard the Solace, Hygiene worked feverishly to modify the artifact. Her hands moved swiftly across the controls, rerouting power conduits and recalibrating energy matrices. Sweat dripped down her face, and her muscles screamed in protest. But she didn't stop. Every second counted. Beside her, Jiho and Min-Su assisted where they could, double-checking calculations and stabilizing the ship systems. Finally, after hours of relentless effort, Hygiene stepped back, breathing heavily. "It's ready," she announced. "But remember, the artifact's range is limited. We'll need to get close enough to deliver the payload." Jiho nodded, his jaw set firmly. "Set course for the Kryn formation. Min-Su, prepare the crew for evacuation. Once we're in position, everyone except Hygiene and me will leave the ship." Min-Su hesitated, his eyes filled with conflict. "Captain, that's an order." Jiho interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Now go." As the Solace approached the Kryn fleet, the crew scrambled into escape pods, their faces etched with sorrow and determination. Some saluted Jiho and Hygiene before departing, while others simply nodded, unable to put their gratitude into words. When the last pod detached, the Solace sailed alone into the heart of the enemy formation. Inside the ship, Jiho and Hygiene braced themselves for what lay ahead. The artifact hummed ominously, its energy building to critical levels. On the main screen, the Kryn ships loomed larger, their weapons trained on the vulnerable vessel. Alarms blared as plasma bolts struck the hull, rocking the ship violently. Sparks flew from consoles and smoke filled the air, but neither Jiho nor Hygiene flinched. "Almost there," Hygiene whispered, her fingers flying over the controls. 10 seconds, 5. Jiho gripped the armrest of his chair, his knuckles white. "Do it." With a deafening roar, the artifact unleashed a massive wave of energy, engulfing the Kryn fleet in a blinding flash of light. Shields collapsed, engines exploded, and entire ships disintegrated under the overwhelming force. The Solace itself shuddered violently, its systems failing one by one. Smoke billowed through the corridors, and emergency lights flickered dimly. Hygiene slumped against the console, her strength spent. "It's done," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the chaos. We did it. Jill managed a faint smile, though pain racked his body. Yeah, we did. Outside, the surviving human forces watched in awe as the Kryn fleet crumbled before their eyes. Cheers erupted among the pilots and ground troops, their spirits lifted by the unexpected triumph. But their joy was tempered by the knowledge of the sacrifice that had made it possible. General Unwoo listened to reports with a mixture of relief and sorrow. Turning to President Subin Kim, who stood nearby, he said softly, "They gave everything for us. We owe them our lives." Subin nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Then let's honor their sacrifice by rebuilding and ensuring that humanity never faces such a threat again." As the dust settled and the survivors began the long process of recovery, stories of bravery spread across the planet. The names of Jiho Park, Hai-Jin Lee, and the crew of the Solace became legends, symbols of selflessness and resilience. Though the cost had been high, humanity emerged stronger, united by the shared experience of overcoming adversity. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, the remnants of the artifact drifted silently, its purpose fulfilled, but its secrets still waiting to be uncovered. The battle was over, but the scars of war lingered. Earth's skies, once filled with bustling starships and the hum of interstellar commerce, now bore the silence of loss. Craters marred the surface of continents, and smoke still rose from cities that had been reduced to rubble. The Kryn fleet lay in ruins, its remnants drifting lifelessly through space like ghostly echoes of their former menace. Humanity had won, but at a terrible cost. General Unwoo Lee stood on the edge of a crater where a major orbital defense platform had once stood. His uniform was stained with dirt and ash, his face lined with exhaustion. Around him, soldiers and civilians worked side by side, clearing debris and searching for survivors. The air smelled of burnt metal and charred earth, a constant reminder of the destruction that had unfolded. Despite the grim scene, there was a sense of purpose among the people. They were rebuilding, not just their homes, but their spirit. President Subin Kim addressed the global population once again, her voice steady despite the weight of what she had witnessed. "Today we mourn those we have lost," she began, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "But we also celebrate the courage and sacrifice of those who fought to protect us. Their bravery has given us a second chance, a chance to build a better future. Let us honor their memory by standing together, stronger than ever." Her words resonated deeply with the survivors. Across the planet, makeshift memorials sprang up, adorned with flowers, candles, and messages of gratitude. Among them were tributes to Captain Jiho Park and Hai-Jin Lee, whose final act of heroism had turned the tide of the battle. Though no physical remains of the Solace or its crew could be recovered, their legacy lived on in the hearts of those they had saved. In the weeks that followed, humanity set about repairing the damage wrought by the invasion. Engineers and architects worked tirelessly to reconstruct cities, while farmers planted seeds in soil that had been scorched by plasma fire. Factories resumed production, churning out materials needed for recovery efforts. Refugees returned to their homes, or what was left of them, determined to rebuild their lives. Even children pitched in, helping to clean streets and gather supplies. But the rebuilding process wasn't just about restoring infrastructure. It was about healing wounds both visible and invisible. Counselors traveled from community to community, offering support to those struggling with trauma. Veterans shared their stories, finding solace in knowing they weren't alone. Slowly but surely, hope began to take root again. Amidst the recovery efforts, General Unwoo convened a meeting with Earth Command's top scientists and strategists. "We can't afford to let this happen again," he said firmly. "The artifact may have saved us this time, but relying on luck isn't a strategy. We need to understand how it works, and why the Kryn saw us as a threat." Hai-Jin's notes, transmitted moments before the Solace's destruction, became invaluable. Scientists pored over her data, piecing together the artifact's design and function. What they discovered was both fascinating and sobering. The artifact wasn't merely an ancient relic. It was a sophisticated AI created by the Vorthakians to assess civilizations. Its primary directive was to determine whether a species posed a risk to galactic stability. Unfortunately, the AI had misinterpreted humanity's recorded history of conflict as evidence of aggression, marking them as a potential danger. "This explains why the Kryn came after us," one scientist remarked during a briefing. They must have intercepted the signal and assumed we were preparing for war. In their eyes, we were either a target or a resource to exploit. Unwu nodded thoughtfully. Then we need to send a new message, one that shows we're not a threat. But how? Another scientist raised her hand hesitantly. What if we use the artifact's coding system? If we can replicate its language, we might be able to broadcast a signal explaining our intentions. It's risky, but it could work. With nothing left to lose, Earth Command approved the plan. Teams of linguists, engineers, and programmers worked around the clock, deciphering the artifact's complex patterns and translating them into a coherent message. The task was monumental, requiring countless hours of trial and error. But eventually, they succeeded in crafting a transmission that conveyed humanity's desire for peace and cooperation. When the message was ready, it was broadcast across the galaxy using Earth's most powerful communication rays. The signal carried images of human culture, art, music, science, and diplomacy, alongside assurances that humanity sought only to coexist peacefully with other species. It was a plea for understanding, sent into the void with the hope that someone would hear it. Meanwhile, President Subin took steps to ensure humanity would never again be caught unprepared. She established the Galactic Defense Initiative GDI, a coalition dedicated to monitoring extraterrestrial threats and fostering alliances with friendly alien races. Military forces were reorganized and equipped with advanced technology developed during the war. Civilian populations received training in emergency response protocols, ensuring they could handle crises more effectively in the future. On the ground, communities banded together to form local defense networks. Farmers shared surplus crops with neighboring towns, while teachers organized classes to educate children about survival skills and interstellar diplomacy. Artists painted murals depicting scenes of unity and resilience, reminders that even in the darkest times, humanity could find light. As months passed, signs of progress became evident. Cities rose from the ashes, gleaming with modern architecture and renewable energy systems. Orbital platforms were rebuilt, their defenses stronger than ever. Trade routes reopened, bringing much-needed resources and goods back into circulation. Life, though different from before, began to feel normal again. One evening, under a sky illuminated by stars, President Subin visited a memorial dedicated to the fallen heroes of the invasion. She placed a single white flower at the base of a plaque bearing Jiho's name. Her fingers traced the engraved letters, and she whispered softly, "Thank you." Behind her, General Unwu approached, his boots crunching softly against the gravel path. "Madam President," he said gently, "the latest reports are in. Our message has reached several sectors of the galaxy. Some species have responded positively. They want to meet with us." Subin turned to face him, her expression brightening with cautious optimism. "That's wonderful news. Perhaps this tragedy will lead to something greater, a chance to forge friendships instead of enemies." Unwu nodded. "It's a start. And thanks to the sacrifices of people like Jiho and Hygiene, we've earned that opportunity." Together, they stood in silence, gazing up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, among the endless expanse of stars, lay the promise of a brighter future. Humanity had faced its darkest hour and emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever. They had made mistakes, paid dearly for them, and learned from them. Now, armed with newfound knowledge and determination, they looked to the cosmos not with fear, but with hope. And so, the story of the galactic mistake came full circle. What had begun as an error, a single misstep, had ultimately unleashed humanity's fury, resilience, and capacity for growth. From the ashes of destruction rose a species ready to claim its place among the stars, guided by the lessons of the past and the boundless possibilities of tomorrow.